What's up, everyone? We have a great one for you today. We are live right now on the CannaBuzz app in our CannaBuzz community at cannabuzz.app or on your phone. Or if you're watching us on YouTube right now, hit subscribe, like, and all those things. Buckle in. We've got a great show for you today. We've got Rasta Jeff from Irie Genetics. We'll be getting all into that in just a minute. We'll get into Jeff's intro and into his story, and then we'll get into the topic of home breeding, how you can make your own seeds at home and maybe mix up a little bit of magic from Rasta Jeff into your own home magic or do something else. We'll get all into that in just a second, but first we need to get to our shout outs. First shout out, of course, goes to the CannaBuzz community. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here, so thank you so much for supporting us. If you'd like to kick in a few dollars our way, join the CannaBuzz app. Just search CannaBuzz in the App Store or go to cannabuzz.app in your browser. You can join for as much as $4.20 a month, and you can get half off by using the code GROWERSLOVE at checkout. And again, all that support helps us keep this train a rolling, and it also gets you access to our community where you can join our live streams and get access to our seed giveaways that we do at the end of every stream, and we'll be doing one of those at the end of this stream, so stay tuned, friends that are in the live stream. Also, shout out to our friends over at Grove Bags. We did a great episode with Grove Bags just a couple weeks ago, so search that up if you're not familiar with these guys. But basically what this is it's a bag that you can cure your weed in. No, get rid of your jars. You can ditch those jars and just throw your weed in a bag like this. They've got all kinds of sizes. They've got big ones. I've got like whole, you could put a line of trash can basically with one of these things and cure your weed in it. So check it out over at grovebags.com. Thank you so much, Terploc, for the support. Use code CannaBuzz for 7% off your next order and cure your weed to perfection. And then lastly, we've got a shout out to our friend over at TikiMadMan.com. Tiki always hits us up with some latest news. What's the latest, JR?
Tiki is still releasing the Grape Ape bucket hat. And when you buy the bucket hat for $30, you get a pack of seeds of Grape Ape by Gushers BX. And it's some old school genetics mixed in with some new school genetics, and there's some good stuff to be had in there. He also has these box set of the local El Bandito box set that we had mentioned, and he has 5 different varieties that he's offering in that box set. And you can find those at neptuneseedbank.com or at tikiseeds.com.
Nice. Well, Jeff, we are so stoked that you joined us today. If you're not familiar with Rasta Jeff, he's also known as Irie Genetics. He's a special guest. We've been in touch with Jeff since the beginning. He's been on our show several times over the last 4+ years. It's awesome to have him on again. We are super stoked. Irie Genetics is known for breeding some of the best genetics out there. Search Irie Genetics. He's got a great community, a great Discord community where people are posting pictures, and damn, this stuff looks dank. So we are super stoked to have Jeff on. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jeff.
Dude, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be back on the CannaBuzz show. Thanks for inviting me.
Hell yeah.
Good to have you here, buddy. We got some good stuff planned today.
I'm sure you do, bro. I'm sure you do. I love that smile on your face. I'm ready for this.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get people self-sufficient if it's the last thing we do, right?
That's the goal, bro. That was my whole goal when I started. That's what started all of this, was just self-sufficiency. So yeah, I'm ready to share.
Right on. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. We begin all our episodes. We like to ask our guests how you found the love for the cannabis plant and how it got you where you are today.
Oh man, that could be a whole episode. So I'll try to go quick. I grew up with some rowdy uncles. My uncles, I'm kind of a clone of one of my uncles. He's passed away, but when he was a teenager and I was a teenager, we looked like the exact same person. If you've got pictures. He was a pothead. He was a pot dealer. He was a partier. If he would have been alive in this era, he would have done what I do. Like, that's where I learned the roots, is from my uncles. So they smoked my uncles, there were 3 of them. They smoked a gang of weed. I fell in love with the smell and just the stoner vibes. You know what I mean? Being around those stoners. I was like, that's me. I fit in right there. So as I grew up, I was always part of the stoner, the loadies on the grassy knoll. That was always me. Started smoking weed super young, younger than I should admit, and then moved to Colorado. I grew up in California. I should have mentioned that part. I moved to Colorado and lost all my friends. You know what I mean? I was a teenager and I was like thousands of miles away. I felt like forever. And so I started finding weed here, and the weed was overpriced and not very good, and getting harder and harder to get and more dangerous to go get. The people I had to mess with to get it just sucked. So I realized I started selling weed because I wanted to make my own weed money. You know what I mean? That's how we all do it. Just sell, break open an eighth into 8/8 and keep your own and sell seven and just keep going. Eventually, I was like, man, somebody's growing this and making all the money. Why not me? And so I started growing it because it was much more self-sufficient, like I was talking about. I didn't want to go look for weed. Looking for weed is the worst part about weed. Like looking for weed just sucks, dude. Like once you get it, everything is cool, but looking for weed is the most dangerous part of weed, I think. So now I've got weed. Like I just started growing it. And then some friends of mine started a dispensary in my town, some older folks, and they didn't quite know what to do. And I discovered them and I put some young energy into it. And we took off with the first dispensary in my city. It's since been closed by the cops and coding and zone enforcement, but that's gone. But um, being there, I was introduced to a lot of patients and a lot of people that smoked. And I was finding out that people like different things and finding the common things that people liked. And I started buying seeds, trying to find things to make people happy. And the seeds were overpriced and way too expensive and not way disappointing. I would pay a lot of money and then spend time growing this stuff, and it wouldn't look anything like what the magazine said it was going to be or the website said. So I found a few decent things, and I thought I can make my own seeds, bro. And I just started making seeds just out of frustration of I wanted something different from what everybody else had in my neighborhood and at the dispensary. And I wanted to kind of separate myself from the market. And buying seeds sucked. I would pay money to have them come from the attitude, and customs would take them, or they would come crushed, or like I said before, they would just totally be shitty seeds. So I was like, I can make my own. And I started making my own seeds. And a few things, my first couple of batches kind of sucked. Honestly, I made a a lemon kush cross that every seed I grew tasted amazing. You could smoke the entire bag and never get high. I made a bunch of hemp,
Ugh.
like it was terrible. Yeah. So I threw a bunch of those seeds away, but then I learned what I was doing. You know, I learned better selection and I made some feminized seeds and I took those to the Cannabis Cup in Denver and just gave them away with my email address, just a little sticker, you know, this is what it is. Here's my email. And by 6 or 7 months later, I was getting emails like, I need more of those, bro. And at the next cup, people were hitting me up. So I realized I was onto something and that just expanded. So that's the short version of how it started, smoking with my uncles at way too young and kind of going to the Cannabis Cup and spreading my seeds and people telling me these are fire, we need more. And that encouraged me just to build the brand into where it is today.
Yeah, I still have one of those baggies
Wow.
with one of your cookies and cream crosses, I believe that
Holy
you did.
shit. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a couple things that could be, but that's old school.
I have that in my library of archive.
Cool. Cool. Keep
Yeah.
that, bro. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's rad.
I have. There's like certain stuff I stash away in case I get the opportunity to start breeding myself.
Oh, that's great.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So So next thing we want to talk about a little bit is the Irie Army on Discord. Tell us
Oh,
about your
yeah.
community. You know, shout out to the Army.
Um, Somebody built the Discord for me. They were like, "Hey, do you have a Discord?" And I said, "No." And they said, "You need one. You have a lot of cool people." So I gave them permission, and I own the Discord. I have the moderation, but I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to do all that stuff. Somebody made it. We've got what we call the Irie Army, the Irie Genetics crew that goes and hangs out. If you have any questions about any strain specific stuff, you can say, "Hey, why is my blueberry butcher plant looking like this?" And 20 people will chime in with, "Hey, I grew blueberry butcher and I noticed this, so maybe you might want to check on this." And the whole crew will just help you out. Nobody ever asks for any money or anything. We do trade some things in there. So if there's things you're looking for from the Irie lineup, somebody in there may have it in a vault and they're not going to grow it. They may be willing to share it with you. It's just a really cool community. There's people right now hanging out in the smokers lounge on the Irie Army Discord, just smoking, chilling, chatting about life. Some of my best friends, my favorite people are in there. Since COVID, we've all learned how to hang out like this. You know what I mean? Stoners, we don't want to
Yeah.
go anywhere. And you're where you are, Q's where he is. We can hang out like virtually like this. So the Discord's just like this, bro. One of my best friends is in Hawaii. One of my other best friends is in Vermont. And we hang out and take dabs together and just talk about life and growing weed. And we're totally as far apart as we could possibly be. So that's the Irie Army on the Discord. Super cool place to be. Come hang out, you guys. You're all invited.
Yeah, it's a
Nice.
great resource. If you ever are interested in growing Jeff's stuff, or if you are already, he's got channels for like all the different strains, right? You like it's just a great place to ask about what's going on if you need help. We have
Yeah.
so many people in our community that are getting started with growing, or they're going to have questions. Obviously things come up, and it's just so cool to have a place that's dedicated to your stuff. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
not like generic advice. It's like stuff for this particular strain or whatever.
Exactly. I feel like social media limits us on what we can post. If I say too specific about growing a plant, social media will take it down.
Totally.
Excuse me, I'm burping over here. And then the internet, I'm not tech savvy enough to live update my website. I got to email somebody for that. But Discord, I can go right now and say, hey guys, I just found out that if you do this to this plant, this happens, and I can post that immediately and share it to my whole crew and tag at everyone, and they all know right away. Or if I drop a new seed line, I can just tag everybody right there right away. So yeah, that's a great resource for me.
So, you have, so many different genetics that you play around
Mhm.
with and access to. What are some of the things that you kind of look for, I guess, traits or things in those varietals that make you want to combine it with other things? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, how do you make that choice, I guess?
that's a cool question. It's kind of just like it's the same feeling almost as when you see a lady that you're interested in. It's the same feeling it hits in a different spot, but it's definitely in my soul. It hits a different note, but it's like, ooh, hey, you know what I mean? Like there's some sort of, I call it breeder intuition. And you just know, like when you look at strawberries and you look across the table, what else might be there? And you go, oh, bananas. Yeah, that goes right together. But if you look at strawberries and garlic, your mind probably goes, I don't think so. There's just some intuition when I look at cannabis plants. I know you met my King Solomon plant? You should come over. Like there's just something I can see it. Or sometimes I'm trying to fix something. Sometimes there's a plant like Kingston Kush is a good example. That King Louis is a great plant, but it grows these long sticks with a golf ball of bud here and a golf ball here and a golf ball here. And you can definitely get more product from other plants because of the way that it grows. So I crossed it to the King Solomon to correct that issue. Solomon, I call him the fixer because if there's a problem with the plant, hit him with Solomon, that problem goes away. So it corrected that golf ball bud and made it grow big stacks of colas like we expect. So sometimes if there's a problem or something I want to improve, that's another way that I'll end up breeding. But most of the time,
Yeah.
it's just like some sort of intuition, bro. I know that sounds like I've got a mental disorder, but it's like when I see that plant and that plant, it just tingles in me, and I go,
Yeah.
those plants.
When you make those combos, how many of them are you growing out where you get to that point where you're like, this is the fixed one, so to speak, where that
Right.
those traits were removed?
Most of what I make is honestly F1s because I feel like so I have a big advantage in my plant selections. I worked in commercial cultivations all up and down the Front Range of Colorado, and I've seen plants that are getting abused by grow techs all day long in different grows. So I know that that plant right there is super tolerant and is going to handle crap, and that plant right there is going to handle crap. So um, another part of it is just decided knowing, well, part of it is the goal also. A lot of it is having the goal. But I just I see plants that can take abuse and plants that just have certain traits, and I know that those are breeders.
Nice. So let's get into some of that breeding talk for folks. And
Okay.
the idea here is we're going to try to get them successful at breeding at home on even the smallest scales. And the thing
Yeah.
that really inspired me to have this topic in this episode with you is we had a conversation, and I had said, I'd really like to do breeding, but I really don't have the space. And you said to me, bro, you could breed in solo cups. You
Yep.
don't have to have a lot of space.
Totally.
So what I would like to do is set this scenario up for maybe somebody who's at home who's going to do just some basic male female breeding scenarios.
Yeah.
And so just real quick, hopefully a lot of people know, but just for refreshers, can you just kind of talk a little bit about the anatomy of the male and the female
Oh yeah,
cannabis
yeah.
plant?
Yeah. So it's really good that right behind you, you've got a beautiful male plant. The colors on that bad dog, those are excellent. So that'll help us out. If you see anything like that, that's obviously a male plant, but there's going to be a lot of telltale signs before that. The female plant is going to grow, you guys call them hairs. We'll just call them hairs just for the sake of the show. It's easier. It's going to look like a dandelion forming at the top of the plant, just a little fuzzy dandelion. If you see things that look like little nubs coming out of the plant right at the top of the plant, that's probably going to be a boy. If it doesn't look fuzzy and fluffy, if it looks like it's turning into a ball or a wart or a bump, that's probably going to come up and be a male plant part. Don't look where the branch comes up and the node comes off of there. There's going to be a bract that forms there. Don't let that part confuse you. A lot of people think that that bract is a male pollen sac. That is not that. That's a bract. Those happen at the intersections at the node all the time. Look more toward the top of the plant and like at the tips of the flowers. Pay attention to that. It's not as confusing. So if it starts to look like a dandelion and you're getting little fuzzy pistils, little hairs, those are your girls. If you see things that look like little balls, little nuts, those are dudes popping up. It's hard to visually explain it without some sort of picture or something, but you'll see it just looks like it's getting a pimple. Instead of getting little hairs and growing little hairs like it should, it looks like a pimple or a wart or a bump starting to form. Pay attention to those. If it starts to make an egg shape, definitely get rid of it at that point. That egg shape is probably a male flower. And
Yeah.
we'll help you on the Irie Army Discord to figure it out if you need help.
Yeah, it's like a cluster of these like little egg-shaped things. Like,
Yeah.
JR showing them once they've opened, but you can see up in the top, very, very top, there's a couple closed ones there.
Right. And
Yeah.
those would have pointed up still before. If they're pointing down, you missed
Screwed.
it. You should have been paying more attention. Yeah. So they'll still be pointing up if the timing is right. And you've got plenty of time to discover that. Plenty of time. My dog might try to be on the show here in a second, but he's good.
It's all good. I've
He's
got
old
one.
enough.
I've
He'll
got
sign the
one.
consent form.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the basics there. So,
Yeah.
can you talk a bit about what are the benefits of home breeding? Like, pitch me on it. Give me the elevator pitch. Like, why should I breed my own?
Well, there's a lot of advantages. First of all, let's just say perhaps maybe somebody is serving a market in their neighborhood, if you know what I mean. Everybody in that neighborhood that's serving the market has got that same Skittles or cookies or gelato something clone. Everybody's spreading that shit around. If you make seeds from selected plants, nobody else, unless you share them, nobody else has that line. So you could have your own, whatever you make, JR's dream, that could be out in the neighborhood and nobody else has it. And if you're trying to corner the market, people are coming to you now just for JR's dream because nobody else has it. You grow it the best and it's yours, dude. So that's one good reason to grow from seed. Or if you've got a medical patient, if you're growing for somebody or people with medical needs, you can find the strain that is perfect for them. I've got friends in Vermont that are lucky enough to run through a bunch of my seeds and find the exact phenotype for each of their patients on their lineup. So we've got somebody with tremors that we know that one medicine stops the tremors in their hands. My buddy Sonic, when he smokes a certain phenotype of lemon Jeffrey, he's got MS and he says that he can't walk right. When he smokes the lemon Jeff, he said he knows where his feet are going to land. We would have never found that if we didn't grow that, if we didn't give him a bunch of seeds to grow and find the one for him. So you get to find the one plant that's for you. Also, if you're a home grower, then you can find the one that fits in your grow, like the one that you can make the plant for you that fits in your grow the best. If you've got low ceilings, high ceilings, whatever, you can find the one for you. It's like creating your own masterpiece and having some pride in it when you smoke it too.
Excellent. So the first scenario we would like to set up is the 4x4 tent.
Okay.
So we
got a lot of seeds in there.
Yeah, we can. So, and that's basically what a lot
right.
of people have is either a 4x4, a 2x4, something of that size.
Yeah.
So, what are the basic home breeding gear that you need to set up a tent for breeding?
Okay. Basically a good light. Of course, you want the best light that you can afford or get into that tent. I'll leave lighting up to you. That's your decision to make, but a good light. Excuse me. I do make plenty of good seeds under LED lighting. The new modern LEDs make amazing seeds, in my opinion. So good LED in a tent is great. A timer. You're going to need a timer. And now you're basically ready to go, but you need some way to move air in there. But as soon as pollen starts dropping or forming, you want to turn off a lot of the air movement because you want that pollen to build up so we can drop it at a certain time. We can flick the plant and get that cloud like we see on Instagram. So try to turn off some of the air flow if you can. but still we got to keep that room climate controlled. So I understand if you have an exhaust fan up top, just try not to let it suck out too much of your precious pollen. So really all you need is an exhaust fan just to suck out some of the heat and the stale air, and a light and a timer and some plants, dude. That's all the basics you need. Just like any other grow, basically.
Nice. So with the lighting, you don't need super intense light, or would you really treat this like you were growing a regular grow you would smoke?
Oh, just you can go just like a regular grow that you would smoke, or sometimes I even do accidentally do less lighting, and you'll still make good seeds. Of course, the more lighting at the proper spectrum, the faster your seeds are going to work. And we'll talk about 18:6 lighting at the end of this too, because people think I'm crazy for doing that, but that's something I do to the seeds. I change my timer a little bit, but no, it's just a basic setup. I said before, we can make seeds in solo cups under very small fluorescent lights. If I'm going to make a new line, like something brand new with a new male, I don't want to make thousands of seeds and have to flush them again because that's heartbreaking. So I'll take a plant that's this big in a solo cup, like the cup that Q was drinking out of just a minute ago, that little party cup there, and I'll put well, I'm in Colorado. My legal limit is 12 plants. So I'll put 12 of those under one light. One will be a male, and I'll put 12 girls or 11 girls in there, and I'll pollinate all those with that one male. And then we'll grow those seeds and see what we've created before I make a bunch of stuff. Because I don't need to fill a room with a whole bunch of plants and make a bunch of shitty seeds. So I do 12 beer cups as my first test run in a very small area. Sometimes actually it's off to the side of a whole another project. It's just over here in the corner. We'll just use those beer cups as a breeding run, run them till they're seriously that big, and veg them till they're, what is that? GI Joe's 3 3/4, so that's 4 inches tall, I think. And then flip them at that point, flower them out. I'll get about
Wow.
50 seeds per plant, and for a home grower, that's plenty. 50
Yeah, that
seeds
is
is a
plenty.
lot to play with. Yeah.
So, like, how are you, like, let's say I buy a pack of seeds, I've got a pack of seeds here and they're
Cool.
regulars, and let's say I pop like 10 of them or whatever it is, and whatever ratio I end up with is males and females. So I've got at least probably a few males, and then a few females. How do I
Right.
pick the male, like,
Okay.
of
That's
the
a really,
bunch? You know
really
what I mean?
good
Because I don't want to
question.
pick the
Right.
loser.
There's
I want
going
to
to be
pick the good
5 boys
one.
and 5 girls, and you want the dude in there. Yeah. You
Yeah,
want the
yeah,
bro that's going to win. So
yeah.
That's
the mistake,
right. We want the dude.
yeah. The mistake a lot of people are going to make is they want that big male plant that really grows super dominant and like taller than everybody and thicker and branchier than everybody. But that's a mistake, in my opinion, in my experience. So out of that 10 pack, let's say you got 10 seeds, 5 of those are going to be boys. One is really going to take off into flower right away. I don't want that dude. One is going to follow right behind him, probably won't want that dude. The third one in the middle, he's going to flower at the same rate as the girls. That's going to be a desirable plant. The other two, there's something wrong with those for some reason. We can already visually identify it. That's just how a seed pack goes. We probably got 3 out of the 5 to work with. I don't want the one that takes off right away, or is super dominant and beefy in his structure and shit, because I feel like he's going to overpower my breeding mix. So I want one that's going to mix well with my females and complement my female plants, not just replicate that male plant over again with a bunch of ladies. So I want a dude that doesn't flower right away, takes a minute to flower, flowers at the same rate as girls, and isn't too branchy, too thick, too hempy is what I think I'm trying to say. I want the opportunity for potency and terps, not just hemp fiber out of this male. So out of a 10 pack, I've got 5 males. I'm probably going to toss one just because it's ugly. One's going to flower too quickly. I'm going to get rid of that one. One's going to just be too, you could tell he's too manly. That's just going to be a fucking football player in there, just meatheading, trying to throw loads everywhere. Just, I want to breed, bro. We don't want that guy. So it's probably the third one out of the 5 that I breed with is usually the dude. The most important part is your goal. Like, what do you want to make? What do you want to do? If you want tall, skinny plants that you can put a bunch close together, breed with the tall, skinny male. If you want a short, squatty male because you've got low ceilings, then find yourself a short, squatty male because that male is going to be at least 50% of your offspring of what you create. So a lot of it is about the goal. Like selection is very important, but having a goal in mind before that selection is really important.
And just to kind of back up what you just said, in your F1 project that you're doing, you're going to have the influence of the mom and the dad, or the male and the female. And then there's going to be a certain amount that are a mix of each, pretty heavily mixed. And then there are going to be some that lean more towards mom and some that lean more towards dad, correct?
Right. You may even see some that look a little bit like the grandparents also a little bit pop up.
That's interesting too, because they
Yes.
may have hidden secrets in their closet that you don't know about,
Yeah,
right?
we call those recessive traits. So
Yeah.
Right.
if I breed plants with just dominant traits together, those traits will pass. But if I you have to find two plants with the same recessive trait to bring that out in the breeding. And the only way to discover that, excuse me again, is to breed those. That's the only way to find that out. So yeah, you may see some weird shit that you never had seen before.
And
It's usually
so,
color or go ahead, Q, go ahead.
oh yeah. Sorry. Well, we had a question from Voodoo in the chat. He was basically asking about F1s and are there like bad traits that pop up in the F1s? Like he was saying, I heard that sometimes the first seeds you make of a new cross are hermaphrodites or, might have male and female parts, so to speak.
Yeah.
I guess maybe could you talk about like the F1? We've made this cross like we just talked about. We've got our first set of seeds. Are there pluses and minuses of that? Like you just said, we've got some interesting scenarios
Yeah.
here where we're going to have like different things that come out in different ones.
We're going to see a lot of different things, but that's all about the selection that we do. If we breed with any plants that have intersex traits, we potentially pass on that intersex trait. Intersex is a trait just like aroma, just like color, just like growth characteristics. It's a trait that is in the plant, pest resistance, whatever. Intersex is a trait just like that. If you make an allele chart, intersex could be one of those traits that you would plug in. I would never do it, but I mean, it could be on there. So the way that you create more intersex plants is by breeding with intersex plants. So one thing that I try to do, one thing I try to practice really hard is to test my plants before I breed with them. This is because I'm making commercial seeds. I'm selling seeds. I'm asking for money and giving you a product. I want to make sure my shit is solid. If you're a home breeder, it's important, but not as important. Things that I do before I breed is I'll take my female plants and put them in a room and just stress the shit out of them. I'll flower them for 12 days under 12-12. They're going fine, just fine. But then after 12 days, I'll flip the timer around to where now they're flowering. They get a 24-hour day and then 12-12 the other way. And then I'll put them back on for 24 hours and then put them back into flower and see how they react.
Hmm.
If they go intersex, if they do weird shit to me, then I'm probably not going to breed with that plant. Most of my females have been stress tested. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier when I lost track of what the heck I was saying. They've been stress tested for me by people in commercial facilities. So I know that these plants can take abuse and I
Yeah.
bring them home and I stress test them. So that's one way I find out. I just grow the shit out of them before I even breed with them. And
Right.
then some stuff is intersex. Some stuff I'll make it and I'll send it out as testers and 10 people will grow it and they'll say, hey bro, here's a problem with this. And none of the parents ever showed me that. It's just something in the background of that plant will throw out an intersex trait. And so those just don't get put out to market is what I do. Since I'm a seed seller, nobody ever sees those. I just hold those back, throw them away, feed them to the birds, put them in the compost bin. If you're
Yeah.
a home breeder, that shit's gonna happen, but it's just your plants. So it's something to learn from. That's mainly what that is.
And JR, I want to interject one more question before we get back on track on your questions. Just came to mind. So, we just had a really great episode a week or so ago with Johnny Casali, Huckleberry Hill Farms. His strain just won the Emerald Cup last week in several different forms. So I've got some of his seeds that have a bit of that that strain is the mom in it or whatever it is. So I'm super excited about this, these strains or this strain and what the potential of it is. So I want to preserve it, right? Or let's say I want to preserve it and I want to make my own seeds. How many seeds should I make to make sure I'm like gonna have a keeper in there? Because I'm like we just said, there's some risk factors involved with the variability of life, right? Just like when your parents have kids, not every kid looks the same. It's just how it is, right? So yeah, how many seeds should I make to make sure that I'm like capturing the essence of that magic? You know what I mean?
As a breeder, bro, the answer is all of them. Make all of them.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah, as a breeder, that's my answer. But I know that's not possible. You've got a couple of options. You could run that pack of seeds and let all of the males flower onto all of the girls, which just a big gangbang in there, and that's an open pollination. You're going to find a lot of great stuff from that. I don't have the number on how many seeds to tell you, but The open pollination will give you a lot of great stuff, or you can find a good male and find a good few females and breed that way, or you can self it. Also, you could grow out your favorite one and cut clones and reverse one and pollinate the other one with that and make fem seeds of it.
That would be
So there are
rad.
several fun ways to preserve that line.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Yeah.
You could do it in a few cups. You could definitely make 50 to 100 seeds in a few cups, and you'll find a winner in those seeds.
Okay. Yeah, because there's just, if there's something I could tell to the viewers out there, I've only been growing for like 5 years and been kind of a weed nerd, so to speak, for 5, 6 years. And even in that period of time, there's been, let's say, 2, 3, maybe even 4 times where I've grown strains or smoke strains that I'm like, this is the one. I want to have this strain forever, like
Yeah,
somehow. And then I lost it. I don't have it anymore because there's like one of them that I love is Brandywine. That was a Dungeon Vault genetic strain from like 5, 6 years ago that he doesn't make anymore. And there's just like stuff like that that just kind of like fades away with time. And I just wish that that time that I did have that pack or whatever it was, I would have done exactly what we're talking about, where I made some of my own seeds to preserve it so
yeah,
that I could grow it several years from now, even if I don't want to grow
yep,
it right now.
right. Just keep it in the cryo chamber, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
I
And
have so
so
much stuff.
that
Oh, go
kind
ahead,
of
brother.
leads
Keep
us
us on
actually
track.
on leads us on to the next subject, which is having our pollen. So you had mentioned an open pollination where you can put a male or multiple males in your tent or your environment to create your pollination. But you can also grow out your male and harvest the pollen. So let's assume that we've done that. We've harvested some pollen. What are going to be the best ways that we can store it? And if we do store it in good conditions, about how long do you think it's viable for?
Okay. The most important part, I think, when storing it is to get it completely dry before it gets stored. Any moisture destroys the pollen, so make sure it's totally dry before it goes into whatever container we're going to put it. Then scoop it into if you buy my seeds, you get these little 3x3 square baggies. Honestly, put the pollen into that. And then I've got an airtight container with a bunch of bags of pollen that are carefully labeled inside that airtight container. And that goes in my crisper drawer in my fridge. I don't put it in the freezer. I don't put it in the fridge. I put it in that little where the vegetables go to die. I put it in there. I think that keeps it just right. I've had pollen last for 3 to 6 months, but sometimes it just doesn't. It just depends on, I don't even know what it depends on, but sometimes 3 to 6 months, sometimes just a few weeks. It depends on that plant, that pollen. It just depends on the pollen, I guess. I really don't know the variable there. So that's how I store it. Just I keep it in a baggie labeled and then in an airtight container in the fridge.
So you really want to kind of use it as soon as relatively quick to the
Yeah,
time that you get it.
I generally don't store pollen. Most of the time, I'm doing just straight plant porn. I've got the male in the room and the females in the room, and they're bumping uglies.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
Give it a little shake, shake, shake.
yeah. And then I give it a shake, and I wait about 5 to 7 days, and then I cut him down and I smack him up against the ceiling so that all that pollen just rains back down into the room. It's a bitch to clean
Interesting.
up, but it's a lot of pollen to get out of the plant. Yeah,
Well, if I only wanted
or
to
smack it against a fan.
if I don't want to do the Rasta Jeff route where I'm just letting it fucking rain pollen, and
Yeah.
I want to only pollinate a specific branch or whatever, I want to be a little bit more strategic about it. How
Okay.
should I go
Yeah.
about that?
Get your little baggie of pollen out of the crisper drawer. Don't take the whole baggie in the room. Let's not do that. Get some of the pollen out into a smaller container. Get either a Q-tip or a what is it called? A paintbrush. I almost called it a toothbrush. Get a paintbrush or a Q-tip. And then if you can pull the plant that you want to pollinate out of the flower room, that's even better. If you can bring it into a room, like out into the garage where there's no wind, we don't want to pollinate the whole room on accident, so this will just help you out. Drag that plant wherever you can, and then just dip the Q-tip or the paintbrush into the pollen. You don't have to go hard. Don't stir it. Just touch it, and static electricity will get plenty on there. And then just paint that onto the branch that you want to pollinate, and you'll watch the hairs we talked about earlier, the pistils. As they receive the pollen, slowly they'll start to curl up and recede and turn brown, and that's a very good sign that pollination has been successful.
And so, what about the bag method, where you kind of put the bag over the spear, wet the plant down, pull the bag, dust it, put the bag on, wet it down to make sure nothing else got
That's
pollinated. Are you?
that's excessive. Yeah, that if you're paintbrushing properly, you're not going to get too much stray pollen, in my opinion, in my experience. Some people will do, they'll bag the rest of the plant, but I'm not that worried about a couple of extra seeds, just one or you'll get one or two seeds maybe. But if for a home grower, that's not I don't think that's a huge problem. I'm not that OCD about it.
And so if I've got like say a little quarter size amount of pollen and I have my branch of flowers
Yeah.
that are all nice and hairy and ready to receive, how much am I kind of dusting on each one to make sure the job is getting done?
That's like I said earlier when we're making seeds, as much as you can, but you can get excessive. Each pistil can make one seed and can receive 1 grain of pollen. So if you
Oh,
just hit
okay.
if you hit the paintbrush and just go, I'm thinking I usually go about, if I'm using a Q-tip, I use a Q-tip. I guess I do strokes about that long. How long is that? That's about 2.5, 3 inches. I do strokes that long with before I dip again. So it's just like dip and then I just kind of blah blah and then dip again and then blah blah. I really don't have a scientific way to describe it. I've
Nice.
seen guys take the pollen and just sprinkle it also, and I've seen guys blow onto the pollen as well. I don't do the blow method because that shit just goes everywhere. But the
Right.
sprinkle, if you just get right above and sprinkle down it, like you're putting some putting weed into a paper, that works well also.
So talk me through timing. Like what's the
Ooh,
right time?
yeah,
I don't want to fuck this up, do it too late, too early or
yeah.
whatever.
So that's one of the hard parts. The female plants are going to want pollen somewhere between day 21 and 32, depending on the plant. My The plant that makes sun-kissed seeds, she wants pollen at like day 22. She's like, "Give me pollen." But the plant that makes the strawberry starburst seeds, she doesn't want pollen until about day 28, day 30. It just takes them longer to get to their sexual maturity. So it's all about figuring out when that plant is looking super ripe. If you're growing from a pack of seeds, it's very likely that the male and female will time up to where they could just pollinate naturally if you put them in the same room together. And as a home breeder, you're going to make plenty of seeds that way. Just let them go naturally. But as time goes on, watch and see when the pistils look the most ready, and try to time it that way. I'm growing with a bunch of different plants, and I know to pull this one into the room today and then wait 7 days and pull the other one in there, and then they're going to time up perfectly because they grow differently. That's just a rhythm you'll have to learn. But if
Yeah.
you're running a pack of seeds, the male and female, they'll time up. They'll be okay.
We'll have
And
to throw
so,
in. Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Jr.
yeah, because I've always like kind of heard that you want to start your females a couple weeks into flower earlier, then you put your males in. Is that just kind of bro science or is that legit?
I think I do the opposite, but what I would do in an ideal world, I would get the boy going. Because I want him ready to just fucking dump as much pollen as possible when those girls are ready. So I get him going about 10 days before, and then get him started and then drag the first girl in and then stagger the girls in. And then by like day 28 on the females, that dude he's already dripping. So you just got to drag him into there and just give him just a touch and he explodes everywhere at that point. That sounded way dirtier than I wanted it to, honestly.
Well, hey man, that's what this is all about, getting dirty.
It is,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
now you
Yeah.
mentioned dragging your female, staggering them in. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, because some of them, they take a little bit longer to get to that sexual maturity to start showing me pistols. So I got to put the strawberry fields plant in there early and let her get ahead, and then put what is the one called platinum tangy in there later, because then they time out right there. Then their pistols are at their peak ripeness at the same time.
Interesting.
Beauty.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, my Scotty Interruptus question was going to be, because you're getting me excited about this. Like you're making me think I should make some of my own, like I said, huckleberry seeds maybe this winter. I've got a brand new 4x4 tent right behind
Oh,
me.
you should, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I was thinking about it, and then I was thinking, but am I left with anything smokable after I'm gonna make seeds. Am I left with anything smokable? I know we're all weed nerds here. We love the best weed
Yeah.
possible, but am I left with anything I can smoke after this? Because when I make seeds.
If you grow indoors the way you normally do, and you've pre-harvested pollen before that, and you just use some of that pollen from the Q-tip method, you can just pollinate. That is a terrible gesture. You can just pollinate one branch
Ah,
if you want to, and just mark it. Just put it like a little ribbon on it or something and say, this is the one I pollinated. And yeah, the rest of the plant will be seedless. It'll still be great weed. But you'll have to have some pollen aside so that you
Yeah.
don't have a male in the room to pollinate everybody.
And if I do a cola, and I'm sorry if you said this already, but if I'm doing like a cola of buds, right? I pollinate it. How many seeds should I guesstimate that I should expect from that?
It depends on the readiness of the plant, honestly. It depends on how ready it is to receive the pollen, and how much pollen you give it. It just kind of depends on the plant. I've got some plants, Mac 1, the Mac 1 plant, I call her a stingy bitch, dude. That plant
Yeah.
does not give you any seeds. I've tried to time the pollination, so I've got friends that can pollinate that bad dog. I don't know. For some reason, I couldn't get seeds from her. I got rid of the Mac 1. I don't breed to it anymore. But like the strawberry fields plant, you could just look at her, just like flick a little pollen at her and she'll make thousands of seeds. So
Wow.
it's very plant specific. Yeah, it's just plant specific.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
are
Awesome.
there?
The P91 I breed with doesn't make a lot of seeds. Um, some of the plants, the blueberry cookies, it makes just tons of seeds, and they're huge. They're so big. The Durban poison plant I breed with makes little tiny, teeny, tiny seeds. So yeah, it's very, very plant specific on how things come out.
Cool.
Are there preparations you want to do prior to pollination, like have the medium dry, have the medium wet, make sure they're hydrated? Are there any kind of preparation tips leading into pollination that you'd want to do to make sure you have a really successful pollination?
Try to avoid sprays. Avoid any sprays from the beginning of flower out. If you've got to hit it with something nuclear, we're not going to, in my case, I'm not going to smoke it. So if you got to spray it with something crazy, do it right before you go into flower. And that way you don't have to get those pistils, don't have to receive any chemicals or any sprays. Keep those fresh. That's one of the biggest preparations you can do is don't spray and just be as healthy and ready as you can. That's like the main part. When those plants are ready for pollen, it's just like getting like a lady. You want her just as healthy as you can have her when it's time for that baby. So yeah, just
Yeah.
general
Yeah.
overall health, cleanliness and health is like your main concern. And
And
you've got to be preventative because if you do get a bug, you don't want to spray. You don't want to spray your fresh seeds or your pistils. So you
totally.
need an idea of how to get rid of or prevent bugs without sprays. That's one big thing to think about.
And am I feeding different? We had another question that came in from chat.
Ooh,
Big Bad
oh,
Badger asked, is feeding for seeds just a case of more nitrogen or something else? Yeah, what's my feeding
um,
situation?
shit, man, $1 million question. There are things about feeding seeds I've never talked about that maybe I'll mention one of them here today. Um, I basically just don't switch out my bloom bottle and I don't add any bloom boosters. You don't need any of the bloom booster stuff because we're not making buds. We're just making seed. Well, you can feed, okay, you can feed your normal bloom feed and you will make successful seeds if you're just trying to pollinate part of the plant. That will work. You'll make good seeds. I feed differently because I'm making commercial plants with commercial seeds and I'm trying to make as many and as healthy for you guys so that you're not mad at me once I sell them to you. I don't switch out from veg to bloom nutrients. I stay in with the veg bottle all the way through. I add a little bit extra CalMag, and one of my big secrets, gosh, am I really going to tell you this, bro? Liquid aminos, amino acids really make healthy seeds. Aminos are the building blocks of life. So if you can get an amino acid product, just add a touch of that right at conception, and then just a little bit once a week, you'll make really healthy, happy seeds.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Jeff. I really appreciate
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just
yeah,
sharing that. I know that was
yeah.
big, so
I don't think
I
I've
mean,
ever said that anywhere. So you guys are very welcome. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate that. And just know there's probably not very, no, I'm just kidding. Not very many people watching. No, I'm just kidding. Jokes.
No, they're
I got
watching, but I'll
jokes, Jeff.
redirect them here.
Like,
Shout out to
share,
all
and
20,
No.
subscribe, all the
bro.
things.
There might not be a lot of people watching, but the people that are watching, they're all badass fucking growers, and they're here for the heart. So we need them. That's shout out to all 26 of the people in chat. What's up, guys? I
Yeah.
see you. I see Big Badger and Voodoo and Psych Doctor 74/7. What's up, guys? I see
Hannah
you out there.
Yes.
Bridge.
Psych Doctor is a huge fan of yours. So if you don't know
Oh,
him,
cool.
he's a huge fan of yours. He's growing your Sonic Boom, he said. Um,
Nice.
but so Jeff, you've just given a couple secrets there so that we can make some really healthy seeds. Now that I've they're formed. Can you
Yeah,
talk us through like harvesting the seeds, and then how do I store them to make sure that I keep
cool.
these
Yeah.
great seeds around for a long time?
One thing I'm going to sneak in here, I know this wasn't part of the question, but it's a thing that I do that people think I'm a maniac for. I get so much feedback for this. The comment section goes crazy when I start talking like this. After pollination, so I pollinate 2 times. I mentioned that I try to pollinate twice. If I've got the pollen, do the main pollination. I'll wait 5 to 7 days, do it again if possible. After that second pollination, I go nuts, bro. I take my light timer from 12:12 and I put it back onto 18:6. I'm only making seeds. If you're making flowers and you want something to smoke, do not do that. Do not. But if you're just focused on seeds, put that timer back on 18:6. My theory and what I've seen is that I'm not making buds, I'm making seed. So I don't care about the flowering cycle anymore. The plants are already pregnant. They're going to focus 100% on producing that seed. I'm giving them amino acids and I'm giving them good nutrients. Let's give them more photons, more light. Light is the main source of energy for those plants to use those amino acids and those nutrients and build bigger, fatter, healthier seeds. So I put the light back on 18:6 and I can cut 2 weeks off of my flowering time with my seeds by putting it back on. Technically, I'm paying for that with electricity, but I'm getting those many days in light without going that long by turning the timer on a little longer. Technically, I'm getting as much light as I would. So I can cut down 2 weeks earlier. Also, I can drag my next crop in there because I'm on veg. I can just drag those bitches in there and veg them in the flowering room where I'm flowering my seed plants. That's an amazing advantage in my opinion. So now we'll talk about harvesting because now we've gone 18:6, we've gotten them far enough. Now it's harvest time. Check if they're ready. Don't harvest too early. We harvest too early when we're smoking it, and it sucks to smoke it. But if you harvest too early and it's for seeds, you don't have any seeds and you wasted all the time. Pull a couple out. You can just grab seeds and just pull them right out of the plant and squeeze them. If they explode right away, don't harvest yet. If they're hard, if that hurts your finger when you squeeze them, those seeds are ready to harvest. So you don't have to flush if you're making seeds. Also, that's one thing. If you're smoking it, maybe you want to flush. That might be up to you. I don't know if flushing's a myth or not. So, harvest the plant. I would pre-pull all the big leaves. Just take off all the big leaves, chop the plant, hang it upside down. I put a container underneath it while it's hanging under each plant because some of the seeds are going to fall out slowly. And then I'm not going to smoke this. Keep that in mind when I'm talking about my dry process and my harvest. I'm not going to smoke this. I hang it dry until it's crispy. Like when I walk by it, I can hear the leaves go. That's how dry it is. At that point, I'll put on some gloves and put it in like a big Rubbermaid bin and just do the thing where you grab the buds and the sticks and just yank the sticks out of the buds and all the sticks go into the compost bin. And then I just use my hands and just crush it up like just and just mush it out. You can hear the seeds rain out of it. And then I actually have a machine that I handful scoops go into the top of this machine and chaff is the useless part. All that falls out of one side and the seeds roll out of the other side. So that's basically, I hang it until it is dusty, dusty dry, and then just pull the sticks out and then crumble it up. At that point, I put it through a machine. You guys will be able to like tip your container to one side, and a lot of the seeds will run out. You can grab a lot of the chaff right off the top. If you just scoop it right up, all the seeds are on the bottom. So just scoop that shit out, throw it in your bucket. I put it in the bokashi bucket, and it recycles real well in there. But I use the machine to pull out most of the seeds, and then by this point, I feel like they've hung so long. If that plant is crispity, crunchy, Butterfinger dry, those seeds are ready to be stored. There's not a lot of moisture in there. I'll put them with the silicate packet, either in a glass jar or a big gallon baggie. And one of the most important things to me is label this shit out of
Label.
those plants.
Yeah.
What was the cross? Like, what was each parent? What's the name of the cross? How many seeds are there? I've got a seed counter. It's really fun to watch the seed counter spin around. I put how many seeds are in there and what the date was. And if there was anything weird I noticed in the grow, I'll mark that on those notes as well, just to know that like if there's a low number or something, I'll put like had bugs or whatever, had a drought or whatever on the notes, just for my own personal notes in there. So then at that point, they go either in a refrigerator in the crisper drawer. I like that crisper drawer for storage, or in a safe. I've got a safe that is in a cool, dry, dark area, and it's a big metal gun safe, and it always stays a nice temperature. That safe is always cool. So that's where my stuff goes.
So kind of like a temperature humidity number just to get people a kind of range they're shooting for.
60 to 70, I wouldn't go past like 68, 69 degrees, but what's comfortable for you? 60 to 70 degrees, and then low humidity. As low humidity as you could possibly go, but I know we're not going to get it to zero in there, but low humidity.
Yeah.
And they should be in sealed containers with no humidity in that package. You want them sealed. I've vacuum packed some seeds and they seem to last a really long time.
Cool. All right. So we have got people successfully breeding at home in their tents. Now we
Yes,
have,
hopefully.
yeah, right. So now we have folks like Sam who do a lot of backyard growing and backyard activities. Can we kind of cover some? I mean, assuming we've got our males and females out, what would be some of the strategies to getting the season started to kind of make sure the males and the females are all firing
Yeah.
off and ready to rock?
You're making my spider senses go tingly here. I've got so many concerns with breeding outside. I First of all, like if we put a male out there, we're going to pollinate every cannabis plant within 3 to 4 miles. Pollen travels far. So we got to be real careful about the plants outdoors. Also, if you've got females out there and somebody else puts a male out there, they're going to get pollinated. So I don't do straight outdoor. I only do greenhouse breeding. Outdoor breeding is possible. A lot of people do it. It's a really powerful practice. You'll make a lot of seeds outdoors, so many seeds. The way I would do it just outdoors, not in a greenhouse, is I would have that collected pollen. And I would go out there and I would just paint the branches carefully in an attempt to not piss off every grower within 3 to 4 miles of me. That would just be a courtesy to them. If you've got a greenhouse and if you've got ducting and ways to control that pollen and filtration, put those boys in there and let them go nuts. That's a good way to do it. But just like the main indoor concerns, I would be worried about pests. I don't want to spray those plants unless necessary. I don't want to manipulate them too much and mess up the pistils. So I would release a bunch of predator bugs. I would release as many Swarovskis and Hypoaspis miles. And what else would I put out there? Green lacewings and rove beetles. I would just invest heavily in predator bugs to keep that crop safe outside because I don't want to spray it. Um, Keep them as healthy as you can. And then if you've got boys and girls outside, nature is going to do its thing. They're just going to pollinate and receive pollen when the sun tells it to, basically. And they'll be healthy. They'll be outdoor seeds. My outdoor seeds are noticeably larger and healthier than my indoor seeds. The sun does some magic stuff. But my main
Yeah.
concern, bro, is receiving and giving pollen from other growers in straight outdoor environments. As a seed seller, I'm super picky on knowing that my pollen is my pollen. I want to know. I
Totally.
don't need no Maury Povich shit, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, one thing I always ask breeders and people who are dealing with a plant on a pretty regular basis is have you really been able to quantify what makes a specific plant taste exactly like it smells? Have you been able to nail that one down? I like to ask that question.
So like from when it's growing on the bud until the time I put it in my bong, trying to get it to taste the same.
No, it'd be
Yeah,
like
well,
you
like,
open the jar and you're like you smell it, and then you put it in the joint or whatever, and the taste comes through on the joint. Or right, JR, is that kind of like what we're talking about?
exactly. So say you have like a strawberry fields and you smoke it and it tastes like strawberries and it lingers on your mouth. Where other times, or even another pheno of that same plant might smell great, but just kind of taste a little bit flat or not have an amazing flavor. Have you been able to pinpoint what makes that happen where the flavor is very pronounced and it smells and tastes the same?
Um, that's just going to be phenotypical variation in the plants. So like in the plant growth, there's just going to be differences there. You're going to have to find the one that tastes exactly the way you want and breed it further generations and focus on that flavor.
Yeah,
Um,
So
in
it's
the plant realm.
would you
But then
say it's
that
a genetic expression?
yeah. It's a trait, just like intersex, just like color. That's a trait. But also a large part of that is drying and curing. I think a lot of the inconsistencies in flavor come from drying and curing. A lot of people, we haven't been taught how to dry and cure properly.
totally.
Word.
Especially the stuff that you're getting in the stores. You know, like the one of the dispensaries that's close to my house, they've got like half ounces now for a pretty good deal. It's like, I don't know, $50 or whatever. For my area, that's a decent deal. But it's dry as hell. So even if it's like the buds looked kind of decent, it's super dry, and so like that taste wouldn't come through, just like you were saying, Jeff. I had a question for you, Jeff, that also came to mind. I've got a few females, like the tent. I've got a 3x3 tent right now, and I've got like 4 or 5 of the same different, or sorry, the same strain, just different phenos, right? And there's like
Okay.
there's one of those that I feel like is the keeper. And so, can you talk me through selfing it? Because that sounded alluring. And what I
Oh
mean by
yeah.
that to the viewers is basically I could take a female plant that I found, and let's say I grew it and I happened to clone it, before I harvested it or whatever, and I want to preserve that thing and I want to make seeds from it. How could I do that?
You're already on the right path. You kind of have the right idea already. So you would need 2 clones of the same plant if you want to make a copy of this plant. So hopefully you took 2 clones. You got 2 clones. One of them we're going to treat with a chemical. It is silver thiosulfate is the concoction that I make. I've done a full podcast episode on it. It takes me too long to describe it. So check out my full episode, the Grow From Your Heart podcast. My STS mix is what it's called. I'll teach you full on how to make it there, how to apply it. So I take plant one or plant A and I treat it with the solution that I make, and I treat it 10 days before flower. Then I take my female plant, the other female plant, and I don't do anything to it. 10 days later, I put them both into flower. Then that plant that's getting sprayed, I spray it again. With the mix I make, I spray it on day 1, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and depending on the plant, possibly again on day 24. Just depends on what the plant's doing by that time. Sometimes it doesn't need it. So I've cut my 2 clones. I've made my solution. I've sprayed one. I waited 10 days. I put them both in flower. I'm spraying properly. Around day 25 or 30, you're going to start seeing the one you're spraying will start making pollen sacs. It's going to start making pollen sacs. Okay, so we may want to readjust my timing. Let me back up because there's one thing that I might have said wrong. I will put the pollen giver, the one I'm spraying, goes into flower early in this scenario. This one does go into flower early, and I do not put the girls into flower until I see that the reversal is working. That meaning when I see that the plant I'm spraying, when I see something look wrong, where the girl part should pop up, it's starting to make little kind of like acorns or a pine cone. When it looks like that, I know my spray has been successful or is starting to work. Then I'll put the girls into flower at that point. So about 26 days, 32 days in, that plant's going to start making pollen. I wait a little bit longer to let it kind of build up a little, and then I'll pollinate those girls when they're ready. Because at this point, I can kind of stagger that timing as needed. The boy's getting his pollen going, the females are getting ready. So then I'll just dump pollen when necessary. So it's basically spray the boy, put him into flower, spray him again every few days while he's in flower. As soon as he shows his male parts, she shows her male parts, right? It's 2023. Then we drag the girls, the true females, into the room and then keep spraying that dude. And then he'll make pollen. He'll just do it. It'll come out. And then once you think he's really producing and the females are ready, you can tap him and the pollen will come out. Or you could do it like I do and put the fan in front of him or smack him up against the fan and get the pollen out. If you want to collect some of it and store it, you can definitely do that. Just hold a small glass dish underneath a branch and just tap the branch and the pollen will fall into that. You'll notice that the reversal plants make about a third of the pollen that a normal male plant makes. That's part of why they're more expensive. It takes a lot more time to do it because you have to treat the plant, and then it doesn't make nearly as many seeds because you don't get nearly as much pollen.
Interesting. And how variable are the traits in these? These are what are called S1 seeds, correct?
Yes,
How
yes.
variable are the traits in these? Because like I just said, I've got the strain, like the phenotype that I'm like,
Right.
this is the one I want to keep forever. How yeah, variable are its kids basically?
Some, and I don't know, it depends, plant specific, honestly. Some are going to look just like it. Some are going to look a little bit like mommy, and some are going to look a little bit like daddy. But I'll say about 25 to 30% are going to be exactly like what you're looking for, exactly like the one it came from. Because you haven't
And
introduced anything new.
and so along with those traits, if you've selected a phenotype that is known to be super stable, you've tested it, you run it, and then you self it, you're breeding in that stability, correct? So its prodigy
Uh,
will have very similar stability traits.
by stability, do you mean no intersex?
Yes.
Yeah. It's if it's not an intersex plant, it won't breed more intersex. You won't introduce intersex by selfing it.
So it's almost like a line breeding situation where you're kind of
Almost,
taking.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is really
Excellent.
cool. Do you like thank you so much. I'm really gonna have to watch that episode of yours. Do you feel like this whole process is something that is pretty doable by the home grower? You know what I mean? Because
Uh,
I
bro, I'm
loved
a home
everything you
grower.
just explained. Yeah.
I know it looks like I've got big facilities and shit. I used to work in, before COVID, I worked in large facilities. But when COVID came, most of my contracts ended around September or December the year that COVID came, and I chose not to renew them. So I'm a free agent just doing Irie Genetics. I am a home grower, bro. I grow in a home. Most of my stuff, it may not all be the same home, but it happens in a home. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you,
Yeah.
man.
That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
awesome.
guess I just meant like the whole process. I want to break down the reticence that maybe I have and maybe others have where they're like, dude, this sounds complicated. Where
No,
you're
bro,
just
you
like,
can do it.
yeah,
You can do
exactly.
it, bro. You can order the chemicals on the internet. I'll tell you exactly where on my podcast because I don't remember where right now.
Yeah,
But if you watch my show, I say
watch the
exactly
show.
where. I'll tell you where to order the chemicals, how much to mix them, which order to mix them in, how to spray them. Yeah,
That's
anybody could
cool.
do it. You could do it all at this table, other than like growing the plants. You could do all of it at this table where I'm sitting.
That's really
It's just
cool.
buying shit and having just thinking like a little bit of maybe if you've gone to a chemistry class in school that would help you, but if you can cook, you can do this.
Beautiful. Well, I think we put out some really stellar information. Let's talk a little bit about the Dude Gross Cup and how we're all going to hang
Yeah.
out and it's
Yeah, bro.
going
I cannot
down.
wait.
Tell
Fist
us
bumps
what
and
you're
high
bringing.
fives all around. Tell us what I'm
Yeah.
bringing. Ooh, I like being on the spot. Everybody's favorite, Orange Gasm will be there. I'll have Orange Gasm. I'll have Golden Goat, Lemon Jeffrey, Bubble Goat. What else do I have for you? Possibly some Chemical Cocktail, I think is going to be there. I don't know if those are sold out. I'll have Frequency Shift, um, Gorilla Goat, Big Mountain Fudge Cake, Kingston Kush, Dog Ripper. I'm gonna have a lot of good stuff. There will be a lot of
That's
good stuff.
exciting. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
Fems and Regs. Some hats. I'll have hats with me. It's gonna be a fun time.
Yeah, so I think we mentioned earlier it's time for you to go into quarantine now, Jeff. We can't have you getting sick. We'll just slide your food under the doors and make sure you get
I got a
there.
tickle in my throat. This is weird.
That's so
Uh,
great. So, what other events are you looking forward to, or maybe some music festivals you're going to get to
oh
this summer?
yeah. There's another seed vending event coming up. It is called the Groovy Gravy Secret Stash. You'll have to follow my Instagram for that. We can't talk too much about it. It's called the Secret Stash. So follow along. We'll let you know when and where that's happening. It's in the end of June. And then, of course, I'm excited for Fish, dude. Fish is coming to Denver again. Fish does 4 year or four. I wish they do 4 years. They do 4 nights here in Denver every year.
That's
I go
cool.
get worn out for that. But yeah,
Is
that's
that
the
with
main thing I'm
John
excited about.
Mayer or who's playing with them or?
Oh no, it's just Fish. Fish comes out and plays
Oh,
with themselves
sorry,
for
Fish. I was
four
thinking
hours.
Grateful Dead.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I may go see Dead and Company also in Boulder. That's just a few miles that way, so I may go to that one. But definitely, I look forward to Fish every year. That's the
That's
big
right.
one.
That's
Very
great.
cool. I'm super excited. I'll be at the Dude Grows Cup in a couple weeks now.
Cool.
I haven't
Couple
been out
weeks,
to.
dude. I think it's 6 days. I think.
No,
No,
it's about a week and a
Is
half.
it 2 weeks? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So coming up
I
very
got
very
something else
soon.
in 6 days. I have another
Yeah.
event in 6 days. More
If it
private
was
though.
in 6 days, I'd have to get more of my shit together. But yeah, I'm super excited to be out there in the Denver area. Well, Jeff, this has been a really great episode. You've shared so much great information. It's
Yeah,
been
thank you,
really
man.
informative. I know everyone in the chat has been having a good time. If you've been enjoying the show and you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe and all those things. But also make sure to search up Irie Genetics and the Rasta Jeff's show channel. It's the Grow From Your Heart podcast. Is that correct? That's the name of the actual
That's
channel.
perfect. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, give me a
Yeah,
like, give me a subscribe, guys, and leave a comment. Let me know that you joined us through CannaBuzz.
yeah, and you
yeah,
still have
give us all.
your Patreon, right? Too. Sorry. JR?
Oh yeah, patreon.com/grow from your heart. Go support the show if you want to there. If you learned something, want to send me a buck, I appreciate that. But really, iriedirect.com is where to go to get the beans, and iriegenetics.com is where all the info is.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, next week we're going to have a great episode. We're going to have Mushmouth on.
Cool.
We're going to do an in-depth rosin episode, and I hope that he is as forthcoming with information as you have been today, Jeff. And we
Thank you, bro.
super appreciate it. Super appreciate your time.
Glad to help out. Glad to get the crew breeding. Make some seeds, you guys. Have fun. Chuck some pollen.
That's
So
right.
if you enjoyed the show today, make sure to follow Jeff on Instagram. It's Irie_genetics on Instagram. Go to his website, Irie Direct. Follow him on all the things. Join the Discord community. It's just a great time, great wealth of information. And then, of course, also the Grow From Your Heart podcast. I need to give a shout out to the Grow From Your Heart podcast. I've been a patron for a pretty long time now. And it helped me learn to grow in the beginning. It was basically your show and the Dude Grow show and Soup the Gardener, who I had like a text.
Perfect.
I was texting Soup and I was listening to you guys on my headphones on the way to work. And that was how I learned to grow. So big shout out to all you guys, you especially.
Thank you, bro. That's a solid foundation right there. You've come a long way in a few years too. I can tell how much you've grown as a grower. So congrats. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
good time.
thanks to all the knowledge that you share. Honestly, that's a big part of it. So thanks everyone who's a big part of our community. Obviously, we've been shouting out everyone on the live streams. Big Sips, Hunter Gatherer, Psych Doctor 74, who, like I said, is a huge fan of yours, Jeff. So I'm sure he's stoked today, and so many others. So if you want to be part of the community, check us out. Search CannaBuzz in the App Store or go to CannaBuzz.app and use the code GrowersLove for 50% off your first month. Also, shout out to Grove Bags. Like we were talking about, you can grow some dank weed all you want, but if you're not curing it to perfection, it's not, that flavor is not going to come through, the smoke's not going to come through, and you can cure it with Grove Bags. So shout out to our friends Terploc, grovebags.com. Use the code CannaBuzz for 7% off your order. And then lastly, TikiMadMan. Thank you so much for Tiki. He helped us get to the Emerald Cup this past year. So
cool.
Support Tiki and shout him out as well. But thanks all. We hope you all have a good one. And as always,
Growers love.